Hey, how's it going, everyone? It's just about 11 here. SimpsonSolventless will be joining us in just a second, and we will kick off this Instagram Live. What's up, Canadian pea farmer from Canada? Awesome. Thank you all for joining us. Eric, let me know if you have any issues getting in here. It should prompt you to join the session here right towards the bottom. So today, going to have a really awesome session with SimpsonSolventless, answering your top solventless questions. And we're just going to be talking about hash in general. We got a great response last time we did one of these, and a lot of people hit us up, and we're just really asking us to do more of this content. So we are going to here right now. Now, when we get started here, I'm going to ask a couple questions with Eric just to get started. Hey, what's up, man?
Hey, how's it going? Can you guys hear me at all?
Yeah, do you want to turn your camera a bit? It looks like you're on the side there. Yeah, there we go.
There we go.
Cool. Before we get started, you got your camera all set up and in a good spot?
Looks pretty good.
Okay, awesome. I might have to change where I'm at a little bit because it's a little washed out back where I'm at. But just for everyone joining us here, we've got Eric with SimpsonSolventless, the wizard of molds, professional hash maker, and an all-around good dude. We've gotten we've gotten to spend a lot of time with Eric, and Eric does a lot of consulting work with us. So thanks for coming on the show, Eric. How's your day going?
Pretty good so far. How about you?
It's going well. Constricted full melts, the man, the myth, the legend. We got a lot of awesome people in here right now, climbing every second. So before we get started, I'm just going to go through a couple questions with Eric. We'll just kind of get started here. And then if you have a question that you want to ask us, go ahead and do the actual question portion of the Instagram Live. You can comment, but it's a lot easier for us to keep track of them. If you actually ask an official question, there's a little question mark box at the bottom of your screen. So keep an eye out for that. If you want to start sending some questions through, we'll start getting to those soon. So Eric, are you watching anything today? What's going on in your world?
Not today. I just got done with some washes yesterday. I did some honey banana and some melon rings, which great terp profile on both of them. Not the yield I was looking for, but it was still really good. I'm always looking for at least, I'd say 3% is where stuff gets really viable, wash. But it all depends on your price point or if you're growing it yourself. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of variables in there, but I like 3% and up, and I'm sure every hash maker likes 3% and up.
Yeah, and
that's to rosin, not to hash. That's to rosin's that's the one I care about more. So.
Yeah, well, explain your math there a little bit, because this is a question we get all the time. Is people contact us and say, 3% yield. What the hell does that even mean? Do you want to break that down for everyone here who's joined us? How you really figure out your yield when you're washing hash and turning it into rosin?
Well, yeah, you start with 10,000 grams fresh frozen. Mm-hmm. You get your hash number and you divide it by that, and you get your hash yield, and then you take that even further when you get your rosin yield, and take your starting number and go to that rosin number. So that's the one I really like. And 3% in fresh frozen terms comes out to more like 12 to 15 in dry terms. So
right, exactly. So that fresh frozen is usually going to be about 3-4 times your actual, when you've got your wet weight, is what I'm trying to say, is 3 to 4 times what your dry weight is. So that's why you got to do that math to really figure out what the end dry product is going to be.
Yeah, I'd say it's more in between 4 to 5 times.
Oh, so even more than that.
Yeah, so like 450 grams, your average dry pound. I'd say 2,000 grams is a good fresh frozen weight.
Gotcha. Okay,
yeah.
So it goes up even from there. So hey guys, thank you everyone who's joining us. I'll be saying this multiple times throughout the Instagram Live, just as people kind of come and go. We've got SimpsonSolventless with us, 2 Erics on the show today, and we're going to be answering some of your top hash questions. Just to reiterate, if you have a question for us, please ask it in the actual question box that's down at the bottom. It looks like a little question mark, just helps us keep track of it because the comments come and go very quickly in here. So tell me a little bit more about what you were just washing. You said some honey banana and a melon strain, so it's looked like you're washing some fruit.
Yeah, the melon rings and the honey banana. Yeah, real fruity profile on both of them. Some unique terps. They were both new to me. I know they've been around the hash world for a minute, but first time I've got my hands on them. So it's always nice having a new terp flavor. So,
well, what are you excited about? Do you have anything that's coming out or anything that you've washed, in the recent past that you were really stoked about? What's the wash world looking like for you?
A lot of times I get my hands on, just that run-of-the-mill fresh frozen. It's good and it'll make good rosin, but I really am excited to get my hands on stuff that's just better. The material makes the hash. The microns don't make the hash. The hash maker doesn't make. It's all about the material. We can only dress it up so much, but I'd take 180 to 219 micron of some great material than some 90 to 149 of some bad material. So the material makes all the difference when it comes down to it. The last stuff I ran that was just super killer was the Crypto Chronic, and that was all indoor, just really clean. It's stuff like that you don't even have to try. It just does its own thing. It looks good. It's, the melt comes out super clean. Everything about it, it just helps you out as opposed to you having to kind of dress the material up and make it better.
So do you find that washing strains that are grown indoors, is that typically better in your experience, or is it really just come down to how it's grown and how it's done? Do you see a difference between indoor, outdoor material?
Yeah, indoor, you always know it's going to be clean for the most part. So you're not going to have that dust. You're not going to have that dirt. You're going to be able to make that melt. That first wash is going to be super clean. Mm-hmm. Whereas outdoor, a lot of that, material, that first wash kind of comes out a little dirty, and the second wash is even cleaner. So you'll have a better chance of getting melt off the second wash. And it's not always like that. It just depends. You have to really, go out of your way to, if you're farming for melt, you're going to take that extra step and put weed barrier around your whole farm, and you're not going to drive quads by your plant every day, and you go that extra mile to make it clean. And I've seen some real clean outdoor as well, but obviously the hoop houses are kind of the best of both worlds. Those sun-grown heads are definitely bigger and nicer, but as far as cleanliness, indoor is always going to have that little leg up unless you take that extra mile with outdoor.
Okay, yeah, when people are doing kind of the greenhouse or the light dep and they're, really taking a close eye. All right, well, we are getting about 1 million questions coming through. The first one from Constricted. Now, this is a good one. Are you guys going to demonstrate the new hash water pump on this IG Live? We're not washing, but we would love to show some of that sometime. How are you liking the new hash pump? It looks like you're in the lab right now. If you want to, you're welcome to show it, but talk to us about it.
It's great. So it's a little loud, and if you have your compressor in your room, then it's obviously, going to be even louder. But for me, I don't have the ceiling heights to have that platform in here, so I really like the pump, and it's a cool setup.
Awesome. Yeah. I want to check it out there. Cool. So have you seen any trichome degradation using it? How have you been using it, and how has it been working for you?
No, I've been able to pull off some melt, and I've looked under the heads under the scope. I was kind of real concerned about that, but I was out there in Denver when they first started playing with it, so I had a chance to play with it then as well before I actually got it in my hands. So far, I don't see any problems at all. Every time I clean it out after every use, there's no head stuck in there, so it's great for what it does.
Yeah. Okay, cool. That's great to hear. And Sour Waves, we love your memes, man. That shit is absolutely hilarious. So glad you're with us here. It is a pump setup that we've custom made that is for working with food grade materials, and it's got some additional all kinds of pressure adjustments and a lot of other things. So it's actually got a stand. It's not just a standalone pump. So we've already gotten damn near 20 questions here. So we'll just start going through these.
Yeah, work the way through.
All right. So the Notorious Dank, love the name. How long have you been making hash, Eric?
I honestly started making bubble, I think it was early 2000. We got a 5-gallon bubble bag kit and cut the holes out of cut the bottoms out of the 5-gallon Homer buckets and kind of went to town. We modified an old washer, a big, huge washer, kind of modified that, and we were washing in the backyard in 80-degree weather at the time, you know, just our trim. It wasn't quite like it is these days. You know, we'd mix all of our strains and just make a nice, but we were still getting that 73 bag was the bag. It was the gold bag was the one back in the day. So we'd still get some melt here and there, and that was the stuff, you know. But I kind of took a break from it because we just made so much hash that we didn't even know what to do with it. And we were making little stamped coins back then. Even had a little, I think they were called the pollen press, and they had little pot leaves on them. And you'd stamp, you know, the little pot leaf into a little hash coin, and it was pretty cool. So. But it got to the point where we just couldn't get rid of it, and we had so much of it, it was just coming out our ears. So I kind of got out of it, and then once I saw rosin, obviously it revived my whole interest in the hash world.
Yeah. Okay. So you have been at it a long time. It's funny how you're describing your initial hash washing adventures in, you know, what would now be considered suboptimal environments to put it lightly, washing trim in a hot room or outside or something. It's funny to see how far it's come.
And then we had the cardboard all over, you know. It wasn't quite the pizza boxes. We used to go to U-Haul because we had a lot of it. So we'd get those big U-Haul boxes, and they'd just be lined with hash for days. And it was a little tricky getting the hang of what was actually dry. And by the time it was done, it would definitely lose some terps and some color. And so the freeze dryer and the press and everything has definitely been a game changer.
Yeah, so before we hop into our next question, I just want to ask you one related to this. Before freeze dryers had pretty much revolutionized solventless as we know it, how are you air drying effectively? Do you have any tips and tricks for people that don't have a freeze dryer out there?
Yeah, really just, you know, the colder the room, the better. I like 55 degrees, and obviously you want to sieve it, you know, freeze it, sieve it real thin. You know, real thin on the cardboard, kind of helps it wick it away. I'd put a piece of parchment on it now. Back then we used to just throw it straight on the cardboard. But yeah, just sieve it, and every day you kind of got to card it or re-sieve it and just turn it and flip it. And so it's like, you know, it's quite the process when you have a lot of hash to go through.
Yeah, pretty labor intensive, you know, after speaking with Matt Rise and having him be one of the last people that's, you know, has refused to move to the freeze dryer. You know, he says that he basically breaks his wrists doing his air dry process. So that's awesome to hear that, you know, you've got a ton of experience with this, and, you know, this has all come a long way. So just for everyone who's joined us, shoot us a question in the little question box at the bottom. We're going to start rolling through these. If for some reason we don't get to your question, please just shoot us a DM at the end. And we will also be posting this live after the fact so people can watch it if you tuned in late or if you didn't get a chance to watch the whole thing. So going through here, we got one from Taos House of Cannabis. Can you share some tips for someone trying to get into consulting across the country? That's a great one. And Eric is our top hash making consultant at our sister business, Pure Canna Labs. So you want to tackle this one for someone who's trying to get into the biz?
Honestly, for me, it was really just Instagram and people seeing my work enough, and then from there reaching out. Other than that, you know, just getting that work out and showing the work and, you know, showing people what you can do and what you can offer them as far as, you know, the tips and tricks that make, you know, solventless more viable. And it's all about efficiency and viability. So starting with that material that's viable, all the way down to everything being super efficient so you're not losing product every step of the way. But yeah, I mean, just pretty much getting your work out there, and it kind of acts like a resume.
Yeah, I would say that, you know, as not someone who's a professional hash maker or a consultant, but as someone that works very closely with many of them, that exactly what you said about your Instagram being your resume, like that's it. I mean, people tune into your Instagram specifically and see all your molded products and all of your hash. And it's that proof, it's that legitimacy that someone who might be looking for your services is going to judge you on. Would you say that's right?
Yeah, and to a point, you know, there's a lot of people out there that are weekend warriors that have great pictures as well, you know, but if they were asked to wash 100,000 grams in a week, they would have no idea where to start, you know, where you know, I could scale it up to that extent as well. So it just depends on what the customer would be looking for, I guess, as far as that goes. And
yeah, whether you're working on, big labs and consulting with multi-state operators, or if you're, helping someone get their little mom and pop, extraction off the ground. Sounds like there's a lot of variation there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Hey, shout out to Nick T. Solventless Mind is on here. Lolo loves dabs. We got a lot of awesome hash makers on the show right now. Thank you all for tuning in. We are going through your questions with SimpsonSolventless. If you guys aren't following him on Instagram already, you absolutely should be. He is making some of the craziest stuff you've seen, really taking the branding and the molding to the next level with hash making. I can't believe more people aren't copying you wholesale. It's pretty awesome what you're able to do there. So we just got a couple more. Here's a great one. What's the highest temperature the room you're washing in could be? Sounds like you've seen the whole spectrum there, starting at 80 degrees back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, you could definitely wash and pull it off in a warmer room. Everything's just, you're fighting everything. Your second your hash hits the bags, it's going to want to melt. The ambient air temperature, when it hits that water and the ice and the material, is going to give you a foamier water, which is harder to deal with. And you always have to spray that through your bags. And so you can make hash in the warmer, climate. You're going to go through more ice and everything's going to be a pain in the butt.
Mm-hmm.
Your yield's going to suffer a little bit, and maybe even your quality a little bit, but it can be done. The coldest I'd like, I'd say about 65 and under is really where you get away with it, to where you don't have to fight it too much.
So you really need a ductless mini split, some air conditioning. I mean, you need to make sure that your room is definitely cold. Otherwise, the quality is going to suffer there. And that's something we've heard from a lot of guys.
Like right now, I'm in the mountains. Luckily, it's wintertime. I have a Vortex fan that brings in cold air at night. So my room stays below 50 without an AC. But come a month or two, I'm going to be cranking the AC.
So yeah, definitely taking advantage of some lower energy consumption options to get some cold air in there. I remember when we were, going to the old Essential Extracts lab, they would not even turn the heat on in the winter, and they would all be wearing puffy coats doing their extraction, Sam and all those guys. So cold is the way to go. So it sounds like 65 degrees is the answer here. Don't want to go any higher than that.
No.
Okay, awesome. So keep going through here. We've got a ton of them. Here's a good one. This is a big one. In the next 2 years, where do you see the definition of small batch being? It's pretty open-ended.
It is, and it's totally, it's like flour. There's companies doing it huge, but they keep that small batch mentality, and that's how you have to do it if you want to keep that quality. So you keep all that same small batch, theory, but you just scale it up in a way, so I don't know where, exactly that small batch is going to be. It's really just relative to who you're talking to. Some people, a small batch is, 15,000 grams at a time, and some people it's 2,000 grams at a time. So I think as long as you just are meticulous about the details and you do everything right as you're scaling it up, and, don't get too far away from the product, you stay hand washing, you stay, doing those things that are true to small batch, and you'll be fine.
Okay, so small batch is not a number. It's really about, what the quality is. Can you actually preserve that?
That's how I feel. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I would say as well that we're going to see over the next couple years a lot more people getting into solventless, big and small. So we're super excited about that, just to see more solventless hash being made. So for everyone who's tuning in, make sure to ask your questions, at the bottom here. We're going through them about as quick as we can, but I want to make sure that we can answer them properly. And some of these questions are being asked 2 or 3 times in the same variation. So I'm just going to, we're not going to ask the same question twice here. So, okay. Got a lot of awesome people with us. Here is a good one. Any tips on building an adequate washroom? This is something I know you've got a ton of experience with. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, just having that, that cold room, having that access to water and access to drain,
Mm-hmm.
and that either concrete floor or sealed floor. Ideally, if you could have a drain in the floor with fall to it, that's awesome. But it's like a grow room. You could definitely work in a put together room that doesn't have to be thousands of dollars. You could work with what you have, but you got to make it super clean, have that water, have that cold room, and have access to being able to dump that water as well and get rid of it.
So it sounds like plumbing is a big part of that.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Do you want to, since we're on the topic, do you want to show everyone kind of what your room looks like right now?
Oh, it's kind of a mess. It's a little, in the work.
Been in a lot of rooms that aren't.
So I just have the brewless all hooked up here. Then I have it plumbed out the wall,
Awesome. So pretty much all
and then I have the rest
all the way
side of the wall as well, So you want to have room for other stuff. You want to have another room or your outside room. You don't want everything in your washroom. So if you could put your reservoir and everything outside of your room, ideally your compressor, anything you could get away with putting outside of your washroom and keeping your washroom as cold as you can. Like your ice machine, you don't want that in your washroom. That's just fighting it.
Yeah.
Anything that just makes a lot of heat to start with, it's just going to be fighting having in your washroom.
That's a great point, and that's something that I haven't even thought about. Is that if your ice maker or some of your other heat exchange equipment, or really any other machinery, it's going to put ambient heat into your room. So keeping those as separate as possible, that makes a ton of sense. That's a great pro tip.
But just clean and efficient. You want your water accessible. You want your paddle. You're going to be doing this all the time, so just set it up for your own needs, and after you wash a couple times, you're really going to get the feel of how your room's flowing and where you want a table and where you want access to everything, just depending on how your room's set up. So
gotcha. Awesome. Great answer. We will keep going through here. I got a ton. Let's see what we got here. Okay, so text to getting the best hash. Sometimes chlorophyll comes through. You got any, general tips and tricks for making hash and how you do it the best?
I mean, as far as the chlorophyll coming through, I really don't see it too much with the hand washing. In wash machines, you see it a lot more. And a lot of that's just, in the hand washing, I guess it could happen as well. But if you're overfilling your vessel with material or ice, you're going to get more of a grinding and not, you want that water to be a lubricant and have a chance to flow around really well. So if you have too much material, too much ice, you're going to get it grinding instead of, it flowing around naturally, and you're going to get that chlorophyll come through a lot quicker.
Okay.
See it mainly. Yeah. I mean, I agitate pretty well too. It's not all about, just being gentle. At some point you do need to knock those heads off, but it's about having enough flow in that vessel and not putting too much material or ice.
So overfilling it, too much ice, that's going to, break up more of the actual plant material as opposed to detaching the heads. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, hope that helps with you. Grow at home with us. Again, everyone who's tuned in, please ask your questions at the question box at the bottom. It's a lot easier for us to keep track. We have a ton of questions. I'm already seeing probably too many for us to go through in the next half hour, but we are going to get through as many as we can, and we will keep doing these. So
Rosin just mentioned a good point too. So as far as that chlorophyll, like you do want to do a very thorough rinse out through your bags. And if you see any of that green, you should be able to spray all that out. Some adequate pressure is very handy with getting foam, contaminants, everything out, especially on that last 40 bag. Especially if you're doing a full spectrum and you're collecting it all on the 40 and you got a big old patty. You really want to rinse through that very well, and it'll help get any of that, Yeah.
Okay, so the spraying process makes a big difference there to try and get as much of that done as you can.
Yeah, those little 2-gallon pump sprayers just don't cut it. You need some real They do have, pump sprayers that work well, but you definitely don't just want the cheap Bosch one. It needs to have efficient pressure.
So make the investment in your gear. It'll help you a lot in the long run, pretty much across the board.
Definitely.
All right, I think Terp Lives Matter has been waiting a long time to go through this. Personally, I don't want to run it if it's under 4% to rosin. What are you washing right now? And the full question is, what are you washing right now that's hitting over 5% other than GMO? GMO, big time winner. A lot of people washing it right now. What are some other strains that are killing it for you?
Really sour diesel crosses. That sour diesel lemon kush I did, that was amazing. You know, I think it was 6.9 or something to rosin. It was insane.
Damn.
Yeah. So, really, other than that, I haven't came across anything that's been over 5% in a second. So
okay.
Yeah.
To rosin, just so everyone knows, we're not talking to hash. Okay.
The GMO, cool. I've ran that several times, and yeah, it's gone over 5% on several different material that I got.
How have you done? Have you watched any Mac lately? Any cookies or cake crosses? You know, we've had a lot of hash makers telling us like how much some of the pie strains, the cakes, and the cookies are crushing it for them, like especially cookies and cream.
Yeah, the cookies and cream has done very well. It was, you know, it was like 4 or 8, so it was up there. It just wasn't quite over the 5 mark.
Okay.
I haven't got a chance to wash the Mac one yet. I definitely want to. It's a good flower for sure. So.
Yeah, well, shout out to Cap. That's a strain that we've been seeing a ton of. People have been washing that for a long time and getting some good ones. We just had a bunch of people come through asking, what kind of sprayer do you recommend? Why don't we just tackle that one real fast and go back to that? Do you have any sprayers that you recommend?
They have 100-gallon ones that have an actual little battery with them and an electronic pump. Mm-hmm. Those work great. But I just have I have a pump hooked up to my reservoir, so I have plenty of pressure just straight through the hose. That's really what I recommend is however your reservoir setup is, or however, you know, you just want pressure straight through the hose. That's ideal.
Okay.
So you invest in that. You know, you want either, if you have a small enough reservoir, you can put ice in it every time before you wash, but ideally you want a water chiller in there. So your water's always super cold when you're spraying out your bags, and you have access to it right there from your reservoir and plenty of pressure.
Okay, so you don't want to introduce warm water when you're spraying it down after you put all this effort in to have cold water and cold room and everything else.
It's going to melt all over your bags and just be a big mess.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. So Hugo asked this, and we've got another one in here talking about JarTech and solventless separated terps. Why don't we go ahead and jump into that? Before I put the next question up, do you want to talk about some of the JarTech and the THCA isolation that you've been doing? Do you have any thoughts or comments on which way you like doing it better?
They're totally different processes. You know, they're totally different consistencies you get in the end. They have their advantage. I really like jam, so I enjoy the JarTech right now. Some people don't like that extra heat, but you know, the proof's in the pudding, and when it has that almost terpier taste when it's done, and it's just the shelf life of it is just, you know, lasts forever at that same consistency, same color. So I'm really into that. Of course, I like playing with THCA and doing all that fun stuff as well. And the terps on that, you know, are awesome. I only keep my first run terps, so they only see 155 Fahrenheit. And, you know, I pretty much discard my second run terps when I'm cleaning the THCA up a little. So it almost makes a cleaner product by the time I'm done with it than the original starting rosin, which some people, you know, have a hard time believing, but you're taking out some undesirables pretty much during that mechanical separation process. And I don't add them back into my terp fraction, so.
I got you. That makes sense. And one thing I'll give some credit here is that even though this post is probably deeply buried on Rosin Ryan's Instagram page, did you see any of the test results that he had come out with? It might have been a year ago or even more, but they did some JarTech over at Oleo and found out that their terp test results went up after they tested their hash rosin of the same strain versus doing JarTech. They actually saw an increase in their test results, which was difficult to explain, and I haven't seen much about it since, but it's pretty incredible. Yeah,
I did see that, and I believe it. You know, I don't know if it's melting down those last little fats and lipids, those few fats and lipids that are present in rosin, or if it's burning off some of those harsher monoterpenes or something, but it's doing something that gives it a better profile, I believe.
Yeah. And just, one quick question coming out of the comments here before we jump into our next official one that I'll put up on the screen. What rosin product is most shelf stable? We've seen some jams that have been extremely shelf stable. And I think going forward, solventless shelf stability has been one of the biggest problems for hash makers is, kind of the lifespan of their product at room temperature. But now with, improvements in freeze drying technology and jams and things, do you have any comments on shelf stability and solventless? Any things that, people can do to make their product more shelf stable and just not have to hang out in a freezer till the end of time?
Oxidization's a bitch, so it's, it's going to get that cold cure. It's going to kind of give that color, but really filling jars to the top is going to help. So you're getting all that air out of that jar. It's going to help the oxidization on a lot of those SKUs. But I feel jam is, the most stable. Back to his question. I feel like that's definitely the most stable product right now as far as shelf temp, and it's just going to stay that same consistency for a month at room temp, no problem.
Okay, so jam, definitely the way to go. We've got a bunch of freeze dryer questions. I would love to start hopping into some of those. Let's see. Cool. So I know you've got a lot of experience with freeze dryers. You've been using the harvest rate units for a while now. You're using the Pharma unit in your lab right now, or are you using one of the home units?
I have a home unit, and I've used the Pharmaceutical, Scientific. Unless you are really, programming a special, program into it, but it all dries the hash the same for the most part. I'd say the Scientific and the Pharmas are a little quicker.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, the 8 trays and the bigger trays on the larger, ones. But other than that, they all dry the same.
Yeah, so I think the Pharmas are really best for capacity. That's definitely what, we've seen a huge drop off in the demand for the home units lately just because of the capacity difference. But basically what you're saying is that it just kind of comes down to capacity and that they're pretty similar otherwise.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That makes a lot of sense. I apologize to everyone who we do not get to your questions. We've got about 30 ahead of us here. We will do our best. Here's another good hash washing one. What do you think about working with tap water or bottled water? I think I know the answer to this, but I'm going to leave it to the expert here.
So you get away with filtered water, and RO obviously is what we all strive for, but I believe filtered water is almost better. So RO, it just feels like it strips more terps than just like a good filtered water. As far as tap water or, bottled water is fine depending on how clean it is and where you're getting it, what source, but definitely no on the tap water.
So RO water is the way to go for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. And just for everyone's personal knowledge, there is some data out there. There's a study that was done, if not a couple of them, showing that if you are using distilled water, depending on what was in that water originally, distilled water can actually concentrate pesticides if there happens to be any in the water in the first place. So there's a big distinction between RO, reverse osmosis water, being used in your hash washing process versus using distilled water. So all the top hash makers out there, RO system is nice and cold. So if you have tap water and you live in the mountains and that's the only thing you have, you might be able to get away with it. But I think for the most part, water quality varies significantly, at least across the United States.
Yeah. I mean, the worst thing you could have is just chlorinated water. I think, I forgot who showed this, but they took a tray of just regular tap water and freeze dried it. And there was like half a gram of just chlorine or powder at the end of it. So.
Oh God. So don't use chlorinated tap water. You will have chlorine in your hash and that will suck for you and your customers. All right. That is awesome. So, man, where do we even start? Okay, cool. So, question for Jake. I don't know if this is for your products or ours or both, but we can answer that. How can somebody find your products? I know that you tend to do washes for other businesses. Is that correct?
Yeah, right now I'm just a consultant, and then I do a lot of toll processing. So What the farmers do with it when they get it, I'm not sure, but that's pretty much how you'd have to go about it.
Cool. Okay.
Plan on getting on the shelves here within the year, I'm hoping.
Awesome.
Takes a lot of capital to get it done right.
Yeah, absolutely. So for anyone who's tuned in, make sure to follow Eric on Instagram. He is always putting out some of the best content in the game. It's at SimpsonSolventless. Great account to follow. He is putting out a ton of educational information, especially some of his most recent posts have been absolutely awesome. Pressing half pound of hash at once. And for anyone who's looking for any kind of solventless equipment, rosin presses, bags, hash washers, freeze dryers, we've got you covered at PurePressure. That's www.purepressure.com. Got a lot of good ways to get in touch here. So here's a good one. What press do you use, and how do you deal with bag slippage? This is a hot topic right now.
Yeah, the bag slippage has been kind of a problem. I've noticed a lot of people have been having that lately. So I use the Longs Peak. I just upgraded from the dual pressure. Now with the dual, you're going to have a lot more problems with the slippage. Mm-hmm. So now that I have the automated, you have that warm-up mode or that preheat mode, and it's really easy to avoid that slippage. So mainly it's going to be on the bigger bags, like 40, 50 gram presses, and on really good material. So it all liquefies in there and just kind of wants to go one way or the other. Mm-hmm. So to kind of avoid that, you definitely want to get back to the pre-press, or just making sure it's super, flat and even, that bag as you pack it. Mm-hmm. Whether you use pre-press or not, just make sure it's super even and flat. And then, obviously with the automated, you put it right down the plate, right down on it, and it gives it that, it that warm-up mode. So with the dual pressure, you have to kind of dial it back, and you're automatically putting like 4 PSI, 5 PSI on it, which is too much to start with. It wants to slip right at that. So you really got to creep up on the dual pressure. With automated, you could go into warm-up, and then you kind of just tamp it down.
Give it some more pressure, actually.
Yeah, so you're giving it some old-school tamps. And as you tamp it, you watch and see if there's any slippage. If there's any slippage, you let off the pressure, and it's going to go back to zero. So
gotcha.
Really, that's, just taking your time and going back to tamping the bags. Even if you have the dual pressure, go back to just tamping it and kind of getting that bag nice and flat and even. But I recommend, really, the best way to avoid it is using 2 small bags. Do 2 20-gram bags on the press at the same time, and you're going to have a lot more consistent presses. You could go through, pounds of material like that without one slippage. So,
gotcha. So 2, if you're having issues, side-by-side bags is what you're saying?
Yes, 2 side-by-side bags is just foolproof.
Okay.
So if you're having problems with the bigger bags, definitely move to the smallers and go from there.
Okay. So here's another good one. Moving right along, how do you achieve those awesome THCA donuts and pearls? Why don't we don't have to give away the secrets, but I'm sure everyone is very interested to know, kind of how you've gotten your namesake and, what you do with some of your THCA. Share as much as little as you feel comfortable.
Yeah, I don't mind sharing tech. It's just simple silicone molds. So, after you get your mechanical separation process and you melt down your white THCA into the THCA crystalline, or the solventless diamonds, people call them. Then you kind of break that up. I like to break it up into smaller pieces so they fit into the molds, and then you remelt it into the mold pretty much at a, little lower temperature from that original meltdown.
So you're not cooking it?
No, you're not cooking it.
Okay.
But, it's still... There's a lot to the molds as well, you don't want them bubbling up too much. You want to do that right temp. So there's a lot to play with. It's not a perfect science yet.
Well, yeah. I'd say if anyone's got the science down right now, it's probably you. We keep an eye on a lot of hash, and, we don't see a ton of other people, making some of those shapes and really branding their products, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah, and getting it down into the, actual small enough size for the consumer is nice. Trying to get them down into the gram sizes and 2 grams. All the bigger stuff I'd done in the past was always, not really. It was 5 grams or 10 grams or 130 grams. So it wasn't really feasible, to put in a jar. So I'm pretty happy with the way it's going. Those pearls were really nice, really hard to make because they're so small, but I like the way those are going. They're, each one's a perfect dab. So it's nice to have that kind of perfectly dosed size pretty much.
When I was scrolling through on my phone and I saw the pearl and the terps, I knew it. All right, I got to repost this in a second. We've been reposting the crap out of your content lately. That was really unique. One that I want to hit here real fast, I just saw in the comments that I think a ton of people are interested in from Mammoth Inc. What's the difference between pressing at a lower temp, 170 to 180 Fahrenheit, for a shorter amount of time versus pressing at a hotter temperature, say 190 to 200 for shorter? So, lower temps for longer versus higher temps for shorter. Do you have any input on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still one of those. I press at 180 and below. The hottest I ever press is like 190, my hash. And it takes a little longer to get off the press, and that's the science behind it, or the argument. These guys that are pressing at 220, which isn't wrong. There's plenty of ways to make good rosin or good hash. There's different techniques, and I'm not saying that my way is better than anybody else's. I've had a lot of good hash that's pressed at 220. It's just not my preference. I'd rather have it take, 3 minutes to get off the plates and never hit that 220. So that's pretty much the argument behind it. These guys are pressing hotter. It's coming off the plates a lot quicker. So they're getting these presses done in a minute and a half. And, it's off the plate. It's done. It's no longer on the heat. So with these lower temp, it's obviously going to take a little longer to get off the heat, off the press. But you're also not, boiling any terps off in the meantime. It's not bubbling. It's not, so I've just always felt, that the lower temp was the way to go. Okay.
So user preference. I mean, we've talked to a lot of hash makers that do it both ways. There is no one right answer. It really has a lot to do with, personal preference, what the strain is, and really what material you're working with.
Yeah, it's hard to ruin good material. Just put it that way. You have great material and you could do anything you want and it's going to turn out good at the end almost.
That's awesome. And you have a lot of good material. Okay, let's go through a couple more here. Thank you everyone who's tuning in. We've got about 15 minutes left on this Instagram Live. We are going through our questions here. If we don't get to your question, please shoot us a DM after the fact, and we will answer it as quickly as we can. Got Eric here from SimpsonSolventless. So let's check this out. Okay, here we go. What microns do you keep? I am assuming that this is a question related to ice water hash. Tell us about your micron selection and what you do there.
The only microns I don't keep are 25 micron. I just don't even have that bag. That all just gets drained to waste. It's just not cost effective to collect that bag. That's the whole hitch in the giddy up. It takes forever to drain that bag, and the hash that comes out of it's just not worth it in my opinion.
So is 45 the smallest size that you have at the end?
Well, 40 depending on 40. The bags. Ice extracts are 40, bubble bags are 45. So, and then the 180 to 219 just depends on the material. Sometimes it comes out just trash, and sometimes it comes out beautiful. It just really depends on the material you're working with. So really from 219 all the way to 40 is usually kept, unless it's really ugly, 180 to 219.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. So again, so strain dependent, because some of those strains are going to have massive trichome heads where you might find your full melt at the upper range of what your typical microns would be. Like, you're not always going to find your melt at 73, right?
No, it just totally depends on, the strain. And just in general, not every strain's going to give you melt. So that's a misconception too. People think they put that 90 bag in and they're going to have melt automatically. That's not how it goes. There's some really good strains just don't give melt. Skittles, I've washed it so many times and it's been great material and it's so close. It just takes that extra Q-tip to clean up at the end, So
you can make some really great full spectrum hash and hash rosin, but Melt is not a guarantee.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, I love melt, so I wish it would be made more. Cool. Okay, we'll go through
I
here.
usually press 40 grams at a time, you know, answering a question down there. 40 gram presses are just, you know, you could move through a lot of material that way. 40 to 50 gram presses, yeah, and it stays consistent. I don't see a, you know, loss in yield or quality at all at that.
So here's a good one. Appreciate Fox and some of the other hash makers jumping in and helping answer some of the comments here, because there's a ton. What's the difference regarding the end products between pressing dry sift and water hash? This is one that I'll just preface real fast, is that, you know, you've got companies like Blue River Terps and a handful of others that are doing sift, and they really focus on that and do it extremely well. But I think, at least in our experience, for the most part, there's a much bigger spectrum of sift quality products, whereas more hash products tend to be clustered in the higher quality. Do you want to speak to the differences there? I mean, that's a pretty big question.
Well, sift is just so broad. So sift, sift is refined keef, pretty much. Anything that's not refined, I would just refer to as keef. And
okay, so let's talk semantics here for a second. So you're saying that sift is the umbrella term, but keef is the refined trichome heads that have been sifted and some of the debris has been removed. Is that how you would say it?
No, actually the opposite. So sift would be the refined, and the keef would just be your, you know, farm basic.
Thank you for correcting me. That's great info.
And as far as, you know, you could get very comparable products if you clean that up very well, you know. Obviously Jungle Boys and those guys that are just cleaning it up with that paint roller and static tech and really cleaning it up and refining it, they're getting very comparable to, you know, the live rosin. So it is a lot broader. You can't just take one of those tumblers and throw your material in there and expect to get the, you know, kind of sift that these guys are getting, as, you know,
right, like Cuban and Jungle Boys.
Yeah, no, they're
doing all those guys.
Definite, you know, refining, which takes a skill and a lot of time. So I've done it a little bit, and it's a patience thing, and it's a strain specific thing too there. So they need those real dry heads that are full of grease, but dry to where they could actually, you know, be sifted through those screens, and not a greasy strain just is a nightmare for those guys to try to clean up.
So, okay, interesting. And to open this up just a tiny bit more, do you think that sift can make an equivalent product to a premium ice water hash? I don't want to put you on the spot, but, you know, what's your take on the ultimate product quality? You can get pretty equivalent?
I think so. You could get just as good, honestly. It just has to be really refined and done right. You know, and like you said, the guys at Blue River, they're taking fresh frozen and getting sift off of it. So that's obviously
crazy.
Yeah, you know, they're on the next level there. But yeah, obviously they make a comparable product, that end product. Super, super exciting to see some of the stuff that, you know, these top makers are making. I think that sift is one of those products where it doesn't get quite the attention because there's a little bit less of it out there at the super high-end solventless market. But I agree, you know, when we were talking with Tony at an MJ Biz a while ago, and he was showing us some of his flan and some of his other products that, you know, some was made with ice water hash, some were made with sift, and for some of them, especially the cartridges, it was like almost impossible to tell the difference. Okay, cool. Let me go through here. Sweet. Okay. I think this is one that we have covered a couple times, but for everyone who is just tuning in, I would love to just, you know, go through this one more time. What are some cultivars for rosin and hash? You know, maybe not just focusing just on the yield, but what are some strains that you love washing and just with solventless in general? There's just so many right now, and they're crossing all these, you know, good strains. All the GMOs are getting crossed with stuff. So it's just, there's so many right now, really, in the hash world. It's hard even just to name them all, but obviously GMO and the sour diesels and all the crosses of those. I like all the banana strains, the banana OGs, the strawberry banana. You know, just there's just so many, really.
Do you have any breeders or genetic outfits that you're big on? You know, we see a ton of Oni Seedcoast stuff, a ton of Cap, you know, Mamico. I mean, we could sit here and spend 3 hours talking about all the genetics out there, but are there any genetic companies that you're particularly fond of?
Off the top of my head, not really that I could say right now. I got a bunch of seeds that I'm going to be popping and starting to get back into growing and doing that and doing some pheno hunting myself. So I'll have a lot more input on that soon.
Okay, cool. Well, we'd love to hear about it. You know, we'll do some follow-up episodes here. We got about 8 minutes left before Instagram just automatically ends our stream. So these come in hour bites. And then we will be posting this up on YouTube for everyone else to watch who did not catch the whole thing. So for anyone who's tuning in here at the end, didn't catch the beginning, we will be putting this up and you can check out all the previous questions. Had a bunch of good ones about washing, you know, what Eric Simpson's been up to, and a lot of his techniques. And yes, Fox, I did cut my hair the last time I was on here. That was about 2 years of hair, and now I am back to normal. So for anyone who maintains long hair for years and years, I don't know how you do it because it's a pain in the ass. Moving right along, here is a great question that I've been meaning to get to for a little bit that will pop up for me. Okay. We got some spelling here, some grammar issues, but what is the proportion of ice and water and weed for the perfect wash? How do you layer those together?
It's really hard to, you know, you just kind of get the feel for it eventually with the vessel you're using. You know, with the 32 Brutus, I'd start with 40 pounds of ice. With the 65, I start with 80 pounds of ice. It just really depends on what vessel you're using, but you want it to.
Do you have a ratio? Maybe that would be an easier way for people to get. Is it like 1 to 1 to 1? Do you have twice as much water as ice? Is it completely hash maker's choice? Like, what do you think about ratios?
It's really just by feel, you know. You just want it to flow around well. Like I said earlier, you want that material and the ice and the water to flow well, and you could feel it when you're paddling as well. You could hear the ice on it and feel if it's just too much. And yeah.
So let me take a stab at this. So you're saying that, you know, obviously the capacity of what you're washing for your material depends on the size of the vessel. You know, any vessel or washer should have some recommendations on that. But that, you know, if you're really struggling to move that material around, there's, you know, it's just too thick. You really can't get the agitation properly. Like you're saying, it's a feel thing. There's not a specific ratio.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And just a couple comments in here about ice. You know, in the food industry and in a lot of other industries, vessels can be jacketed. And that's something that we're also thinking about too, is, you know, I think in the long run, ice may or may not be a part of commercial hash washing. That's purely speculative, purely my own question. But right now, Eric, does it seem like ice actually performs a pretty important function, right? Because the ice can help actually detach those trichomes, or do you think it's just all temperature?
No, I feel like it helps with agitation as well. You know, it's something for those that's knocking those heads off a little further than just the material and cold water. You know, obviously a lot of it's just the cold water and the little bit of agitation, but I feel like the ice helps definitely.
Awesome. And one thing that we're super excited about is just seeing ice water hash and solventless grow. I mean, sometimes it's hard to stop and reflect and see what was going on even 2 years ago and how far things have come. But this is just going to keep growing. I mean, it seems like the industry is extremely healthy, even with everything that's going on with COVID-19. I mean, people are still trying to wash. People are still trying to grow their businesses.
Oh, yeah. Fair. I just see, more and more people coming into the space and it being a competitive space, but it doesn't mean there's not room for everybody at the table.
So if there's something people should focus on, whether they're coming into the market themselves or they're new hash makers or, you know, they're not an established brand, what are some tips for people trying to get into solventless? I'm going to guess quality is something to focus on.
Yeah, just finding these, you know, whether you're going to grow it yourself or just working hand in hand with these farmers to really dial in, you know, the best. So growing for flower and growing for, you know, trichomes are two different things. And just educating that farmer and getting them to know the difference and all these little tips and tricks to make a better, product. So just working with them hand in hand, and just going through the process several times and getting experience. There's nothing, better than experience when it comes to hash making. When it comes to any of this stuff, you're not just going to come in overnight and, change the game. You got to put in your work.
Yeah. Well said. Could not have said it better myself. We got a couple minutes left here. One question that got asked a couple times in the comments, but not in the question box, was how do you feel about solventless cartridges, and do you have any comments on them? I know that you've been experimenting with some of those recently, haven't you, and making some?
Yeah, and I've made them, I've been able to make them for a while, but as far as getting them to the consumer, it takes a lot of education on how long to hit them and how long to draw, and then you want the less battery with the rosin so it's not burning it and hitting too hot, because then the whole cartridge is burnt out at that point. So there's a lot to them. C-Cell and some of the cartridges companies are getting better as far as fail rates and heavy metal testing and all that stuff as well. So
not trying to smoke lead.
Yeah, and there's definitely a few ways to go about getting rosin into a cartridge. So just finding that one that's gonna, have the best shelf life and work the best without any problems is the main thing.
Okay. So yeah, this is almost too big of a topic to dive in with the limited amount of time that we have left, but do you see solventless cartridges as becoming a much more common product here in the future, or do you think it's going to continue to be pretty specialty?
It'll be a more common product to a point, but it's still pretty specialty to do it right. There's only a few companies that are doing it right and doing it consistent. I've seen several companies put them out and then have to go back on that and have fail rates and, different things happening. So that's the worst thing you can do for a product, is put it out there just to have to take it out off the shelf. So.
Okay. Well, we've got a couple minutes left here. For anyone whose questions we didn't get to, we got more questions this time than about 5 times as many than last time when Cliff and I were just sitting down and answering a couple questions. So we're going to finish up with one more here. If we didn't answer your question, please just shoot us a DM, and we will be having Eric back on the show in the future too. We've also got a couple other hash makers queued up to get on the show, from Soil Grown, Rosin, Ryan, Fox, and a bunch of other people. Pretty much any of our hash maker friends that want to come on, we'll be doing some more Q&As. So as a last question here, big one, even though it seems small, in-house single source versus using others' products. I know that you tend to wash mainly for other people. Do you have any comments on trying to make sure the product that you're washing is good?
Yeah, I mean, single source is obviously ideal, but if you're not in the position to do that, you have to rely on other people. So it's just about finding those farmers that kind of have that passion for it that you do and want that best representation of that plant, So just finding good farms and good materials to work with, you can't go wrong with that as well. Let them do what they're good at and you do what you're good at. But
so find some growers that are actually trying to grow some stuff that is for solventless, and some people that actually know something about it.
Yeah, because it's huge. Having that right material is huge in the solventless world. It's got to yield, otherwise it's not even worth, running. So, but single source, obviously, ideally, is the best way to go.
Yeah, as Fox says, single source or die. It's hilarious because that is, the true hash maker's creed in a lot of ways. But, there's all kinds of great white label washing going on out there. It's all about finding product that is going to wash, and, not just committing to something gigantic before it's even going to yield right, huh?
Yeah. It's hard, and it's hard. There was just a question there. Can you use a microscope to see the trichomes and tell if it'll wash well? There's little tricks, but really you just have to test wash stuff to tell. I mean, when you're looking through a scope, you could see if it's got, a lot of heads on it, and if the stalk is long and it looks like the heads will come off easy and be detached easy. There's certain things to look for, but ultimately you just got to test wash it.
Awesome. Well, guys, we're wrapping up here. Instagram is going to kick us off in 15 seconds. So make sure to follow Eric at SimpsonSolventless. And this is PurePressure bringing you great hash content. So thank you all. We will be posting this.